I get the answer, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hey. That's right. We'll go to the 6,000 personal audits later. Yes, thank you. My number one quality is leadership. It's always been my number one quality when it comes to anything I've ever done. Willingness to take on the tough fights, sometimes regardless of what people think about it at the beginning. For instance, when I was elected, a performance audit of the Department of Environmental Protection had never been done. And people thought that was too tough of a fight. And in fairness, John actually criticized me for being too tough on the drillers. But let me tell you something. Protecting our water is something that is absolutely not up for debate. So I was willing to take on that tough fight. We put forward 27 recommendations as a result of that. Both the Corbett and the Wolf administration have been following those recommendations. That's number one. Number two, it's toughness. You got to be willing to take some blows from the insiders to get done what needs to get done for the people of Pennsylvania. Let me tell you something. Taking on the Philadelphia Parking Authority, there's a lot of insiders that are pushing back on that audit. But it's the right thing to do to find out why that authority hasn't been putting the money they're supposed to be putting in for the children of Philadelphia. And number three, always remember that the money is important, but it's not always about the money. Untested rape kits, inexcusable, fighting to fix that. 43,000 phone calls unanswered to the child abuse hotline, fought to make the necessary changes there. And also when our seniors had literally the Department of Health strip away their right to make anonymous complaints to the Department of Health. I fought that, and now the anonymous complaints are back in to better protect our seniors in Pennsylvania.
The public gets very frustrated. This is just when you started. The public gets very frustrated by the government's handling of our tax dollars. For example, the payment of over $700,000 to over 2,300 deceased public assistance recipients. What can the Auditor General do to decrease misuse, fraud, and waste of our tax dollars and our federal tax dollars that we receive to improve the economy and efficiency of Pennsylvania? How would you remove the abuses, for example, in the pension systems and the management fees in the pension systems?
Well, to address the first part of that question, I think Attorney General DeCastro has discussed the thousands of welfare fraud cases that he uncovered, and I think that's how you do it. You just have to go and go through the rules and check these things out. Again, I mean, this is really how you address it. It's just to audit these institutions and see what money's going.
Well, outside of the Auditor General's department, the Auditor General has no executive authority. We don't have any legislative authority. All we can do is publish, do a good job of the audits, publish the results to, of course, the agency that audited. If they don't fix the problem, then we need to turn it over to the governor or to the legislature if it needs a legislative fix. Ultimately, though, I want to point out that the final responsibility for getting things fixed, if they're not being fixed, is the voters. They have the authority, they have the responsibility. They need to elect new people if the representatives that are currently in power are not getting things fixed.
Thank you. As someone who's traveled all over this state, I've heard the frustrations of people. They have a right to be frustrated when they see that, I find over 2,000 people getting cash assistance putting on their EBT card. And the Department of Human Services that we were auditing didn't even know about the federal regulation that we had to show them that enabled that payment process to stop. They have a right to be frustrated about that. They also know that Americans have big hearts. There are people that need assistance. But we need to make sure that that money is going to the people that need assistance. And obviously, when you're deceased, you don't need that anymore. It was brought up earlier, and I think the point is exactly right. People get very frustrated with our legislature. Right now, I am barred from an Attorney General decision on auditing the Pennsylvania legislature. And that would apply to any of us. I am fighting to change that law to make sure that the Auditor General does have the authority to conduct an independent audit of the Pennsylvania legislature. And when it comes to the specific question that was at the end of the question on pensions, About $600 million a year goes to management companies to our Pennsylvania pension system. $600 million, and they're not even meeting the stock index fund. We are auditing both the state teachers pension fund and the state workers pension fund. We're going to get at exactly the criteria that's used to pick each one of those management firms and to find out what the taxpayers are getting, and if there are necessary changes, I will fight across the state to make them.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Thank you. The challenge with government is how do you change the culture of government? And I've been doing that since I've come into public office. The government solution to any problem is throw money at it or throw bodies at it. The key is really identifying the problem, rooting it out, and putting in a sustainable solution. Here's an example. I came into Northampton County healthcare. Was a major challenge for Northampton County. It's 6 months into my first term. We identified the fact that costs were going up 1.5 to 1.7 million per year for several years prior. We dug into that and realized we're supporting the same number of population. It had to be changed. On the back end, Obamacare we were going to face a $10 million excise tax penalty. It had to change. We went in, we evaluated the plan. We have 11 unions in Northampton County. I took on the 11 unions and let them know what we had to do it, explained to them why. Finances of the county were important. We took a measured step with changing the healthcare plan, but we went further. We also went after the provider. We pulled the curtain back on the provider and found out how they were taking advantage of the county in their fees and we changed that. But we didn't stop there. We went one step further. We went back to the administrator that was processing the claims that weren't doing a good job on behalf of our employees, that was costing us money, and we changed that process. We went through the entire system, and that's ultimately the only way you can begin to change the process in the future of for taxpayers and the government overall. And that's what's critical to any process, whether it be pension, human services, it doesn't matter. You have to root it out all the way back to the beginning. And that's what I've been able to do multiple times as mayor and in Northampton County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Swain? Oh, sorry, Mr. Manette. This is a question from the audience which matches one of ours. At about $50,000 per well, Pennsylvania is the only gas-producing state that imposes a fee instead of a tax directly on the amount of gas extracted from the wells. Do you defend a severance tax or an impact fee for the hydrofracking industry? And how do you plan to hold fossil fuel corporations in Pennsylvania accountable for their destruction of our natural resources, air, water, and earth?
Well, first of all, take the easy part of that. I would favor a severance tax. I think a severance tax is entirely justifiable for common resources that are being removed for the use of the removal. So a severance tax makes sense to me. The other part of that question is really a tough one, and that is protecting the environment. Obviously something that's very, very important, but it's kind of not something that we want to turn over to politicians. I feel like if the environment is damaged, that almost has to be something that is adjudicated through the court system, and the polluter needs to pay restitution. So that would be my approach to that.
Thank you. Mr. DePasquale.
I have from the beginning thought the severance tax would be the best policy for the people of Pennsylvania when it comes to natural gas drilling. What is below the ground belongs to the people of Pennsylvania. Unless it's on private land, and then there's issues where the private landowner should have appropriate protection. I was the first Auditor General ever to order an immediate audit of all of our water protection programs in the state. And again, I know, and I'd love to hear John's take on this, because he criticized me in the paper in Bradford County for being too tough on the drillers. Well, I have been tough on the drillers, because there were over 300 wells on private lands that were negatively impacted, where people's private drinking water was negatively impacted because of the action of a handful of drilling companies. Again, not all, but some. And that's one of the reasons why I thought a severance tax was appropriate, so we could have money set aside for when there was environmental contamination, so we could fix that environmental problem. Also to fund enough inspectors in the state. When we audited the Corbett administration, we found that they didn't have enough inspectors. Now, during their answer to the audit, they said they did, as the day of my press conference, of course, they announced to hire about 50 inspectors that day, so I get the timing of that. But the point is, the severance tax would be good policy to make sure we have money set aside to protect our environment, to pay for the necessary inspectors. And yes, I have been tough on the drillers because if any single driller pollutes the environment, I'm going to hold them responsible.
Mr. Brown?
How do you hold the drillers accountable on their contracts? And obviously enforcing contracts is critical in any organization, especially in government. I'm going to say especially in government, because there's contracts that are out there that are not meeting the terms of those contracts. So enforcing the contract is critical. But there's also about striking a balance. We have to protect our waters and we have to protect our environment. But at the same time, we also have to be able to create jobs. We have to have jobs sustaining for our families, because that's the income that we need to keep our state moving forward. It's always going to be a tug of war on balance. Over-regulation, when it swings that way, costs jobs. It causes companies and businesses to move out, which just puts more pressure on homeowners and the tax base overall. We've encountered this in Northampton County. We take a look at whether we're doing development or preservation. It's the same conversation, two sides of the same coin, and we have to entertain both in the conversation simultaneously to come up with a solution. The fees from the gas are important. We use them in Northampton County to take care of bridges, preserve open space. So I'm not opposed to the fees, but I am opposed to over-regulation and too stringent of swing by government to step in and shut down when it comes to costing jobs in the state of Pennsylvania overall.
Mr. Sweeney?
Well, this is a question that has agreed. I do have a philosophical point of view on it. I am very concerned about the environment. I have seen tremendous wealth created in my community in northeastern Pennsylvania where a lot of drilling is going on. But I've also seen tremendous environmental impact. Regarding the severance fee, personally, since I opposed drilling, I would like to personally see a ban on it because I think that's the only way to really protect our environment. But short of that, severance fee, I would only support a severance fee if it applied to all our resources, not just oil, gas, whatever, but across the board, I think we should have a severance fee. And as far as the jobs, there's jobs created, or a lot of jobs created, but they're very dangerous jobs. A lot of people have been killed on the job site, and I do speak to workers